My wife, 33F, has been acting really strange lately, and I'm starting to think she might be cheating on me. With one of the kids she coaches. I feel sick even typing that. Some background: my wife is an accountant by day, and in the evenings, she volunteers as a soccer coach for a local youth team. She's always loved soccer, and I thought it was great that she was so involved with the kids and the community. But recently, she's been dropping weird comments that are starting to really concern me. It all started about 2 months ago. She casually mentioned one of the boys on her team. He's 17, and I won't say his name for obvious reasons. At first, it was harmless stuff, like he's really talented for his age or he's a natural leader on the field. I didn't think much of it because, well, she's a coach, and it's her job to encourage the kids, right? But then the comments started to get weird. Like one night, out of nowhere, she said, kid's name / has really pretty eyes. They're so striking. I remember thinking, that's an odd thing to say about a kid you're coaching. I kind of brushed it off at first, but then more things followed. Another time, she came home after practice and said, he's so much more athletic than anyone else on the team. It's impressive how developed he is. Again, I tried to shake it off, but my gut started nagging at me. Why is she talking about him so much? Then there's the fact that she's been getting way more secretive. She's always been open with her phone and emails, but lately, she's been turning her screen away from me when she texts or checks messages. I asked her about it, and she just laughed it off, saying I was being paranoid. She's also been staying later and later after practices. At first, she told me it was just because they were prepping for some tournament, but now, even with the tournament over, she's still coming home late. When I ask, she gives vague excuses like, oh, the team needed extra help, or I had some paperwork to catch up on. Here's the thing that really has me spiraling. Last week, I came home early from work. I expected to have the house to myself since she was supposed to be at practice, but when I walked in, I found her sitting on the couch, texting someone with a huge smile on her face. When she saw me, she quickly locked her phone and got super flustered. She said it was just one of the parents asking about game schedules, but it didn't feel right. I don't have any solid proof, but something just feels off. Why would she be talking about this kid's looks? Why is she suddenly so secretive? I haven't been able to shake the feeling that something more is going on. I don't want to accuse her of something so serious without any real evidence, but I also don't want to ignore my instincts. I love her, and I really don't want to believe she'd do something like this, especially with a kid she's supposed to be mentoring. So, Reddit, what should I do? Am I reading too much into this? Is she cheating on me with this 17-year-old, or am I just being paranoid? How do I even begin to confront her about something like this? Any advice would be appreciated. I'm honestly feeling lost right now. Update 1. After reading your comments, I took some of your advice and contacted my lawyer on the evening of my original post. I'll go into more details about that shortly, but before diving into the updates, I'd like to clarify why this post is coming out now and in this format. Unfortunately, after posting, my original post was taken down and I received a 3-day ban from the subreddit. Thankfully, the post was later restored, but I had to wait until the ban lifted to share updates. I did keep track of each development and wrote them out as they happened, so I'll be sharing them in chronological order, just as I intended from the start. In my previous post, I shared some difficult suspicions about my wife, who recently became increasingly close to a 17-year-old boy she coaches. She started making strange comments about his looks, athletic abilities, and personal qualities that went beyond her usual enthusiasm for coaching. Meanwhile, she's become much more secretive with her phone and is often late home from practice without clear explanations. These changes have left me wondering if there's something more happening between them, but I don't have solid proof and don't want to jump to conclusions without evidence. First off, I want to thank everyone for the comments, advice, and support on my original post. Unfortunately, my original post was initially taken down, and I received a 3-day temporary ban from the subreddit. Thankfully, the post was eventually restored after my ban ended. Since I wasn't able to share updates during that time, I've decided to create a new post with all the updates so far, structured chronologically to keep everything organized. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. This is why I'm only updating now, and the last 5 days have also been a whirlwind. I took some of your advice and reached out to a lawyer, well, sort of. An old friend from high school, who's now a successful family lawyer, happens to be visiting this week. While family law isn't exactly what I need, I'd rather speak to someone I trust before hiring a lawyer and potentially escalating things out of control. I'm meeting him for coffee tomorrow and will update you afterward. I'm hoping he can give me some solid legal advice without things getting too intense. I obviously don't want her to be arrested or anything drastic like that, but I also don't know what to do next. Right now, I'm not even angry, just overwhelmed and in shock. It's hard to process that someone I've been so close to over the last 2 years might not be who I thought and could have been hiding something awful this whole time. The last 5 days have been absolute hell. The title is a bit of a giveaway, but pretty much everyone who commented was right, and my own suspicions have been confirmed. After talking to my friend, the lawyer, we agreed that I should confront her with my concerns, suggest looking through her phone together just to put some of my suspicions to rest. I realize how risky this was, but we really didn't have a lot of choice considering there was no clear proof that anything weird had been going on. He suggested that we meet somewhere quiet, but still in a public setting in case she decided to freak out and do something irrational. I decided to take her to our local park where I sat her down on a park bench well away from any crowds of people. When we sat down together, I told her how serious of a situation we could be in and that she must be completely honest with me, and that want to be on her side, but the way she had been acting had led to some serious suspicions. I explained to her that I didn't want to break the trust between us, so had decided against looking through her phone, despite how tempted I was. When I told her the concerns, she immediately got defensive and started denying everything. She called me a paranoid asshole for even suggesting that she would be in a relationship with a minor. She said the fact that I would even question something like this means there's probably something wrong with me and that I must be the one hiding something. Honestly, the way she reacted just confirmed to me that there was something that she hadn't been telling me this entire time, and that without her cooperation, the safest bet was probably just to leave. I suggested that we look through her phone together just to provide me with closure, and even if there was nothing to hide, it would mean a lot to me that she would just humor me, and that it might even be fun to look through together and laugh at how ridiculous I was being. She screamed at me for trying to invade her privacy and that I had massively overstepped the line before storming away from me, back to the car and driving to her friend's house to stay for the night. I don't know what she talked about with her friend, but at around 3 a.m. the next morning I got a really long text from her giving her view of the situation. The messages was as follows. The entire message was considerably long, so I've summarized it for this post. My wife, I really don't think what I have been doing is wrong. It started with me just helping this kid with some extra practice because he was struggling to get the hang of some of the drills we had been working on in that day's training session. These private sessions were becoming more regular, and after about 3 weeks of extra training sessions he sent me a friend request to my Instagram. He wasn't the first one of the team to send me a request, and I wouldn't usually accept them, but as I was giving this kid private coaching sessions I thought it made more sense. He started to send me DMs, so I responded, because I'm not a total asshole. Okay, maybe the texts aren't just about soccer anymore. There's nothing wrong with being friends with a kid. You've always been super close to your younger brother and I've never called you out for being weird. The message then proceeded to say how much of an asshole I was for trying to call her out and trapping her in a situation that would always leave her looking bad. She ended the message by telling me that she thinks that she'll be able to look past this and forgive me for being a total insecure dickhead, and that if I ever questioned her like this again, she would be filing for a divorce. I was in complete shock when I read this response, as I have never seen this side to my wife. This is not the kind, loving, respectful, and open person whom I had married, and it is driving me totally insane. I just don't know what to do. I understand that what she was telling me is not normal, and I can't believe how naive I've been for so long, but I still feel like there's even more going on that she's not telling me. Her long message didn't actually explain why she had been messaging this kid so much and for so long, or why she had been spending literal hours every evening locked in our bedroom or on the sofa just on her phone. IDK, maybe I am just being paranoid? Maybe this is more normal than I'm making it out to be, although this seems unlikely. Should I still try to look through her phone anyway, despite what she's told me? When we had met the previous day, my friend mentioned that this was out of his field, but that I shouldn't contact the police until I was more sure of anything, because if we did end up getting a divorce, and she is technically innocent, calling the police on your wife for providing extra help to a kid she coaches wouldn't look very good for me in a courtroom. 1. If everything is above board and legal, in a potential divorce, his actions could look like prejudice and be used against him when dividing assets/property/spousal support/etc. 2. If they were considered a mandatory reporter, why did they wait? Have a lawyer walk them through the right steps to carefully explain why they waited, how they waited for legal advice to know how to report, etc. Protect themselves legally. 3. The lawyer should then suggest the action that most likely provides protection for the minor, with or without proof from the coach. Is that warning of the parents? What if they don't care? Report to the police. What if they want more evidence? Report to the school/coaching team, etc. Update 2. I did what many people suggested and contacted our local police. Although this would be the preferred option, our current financial position and my current salary doesn't allow me to hire a private investigator. She is also the main earner in the relationship, about 60% of our shared income. Not only can I not afford to hire a PI, but there is also the issue that we have a shared bank account. Any poo, or chases. I am aware that it's always smart to have our own individual bank accounts alongside a shared one, but we have been so close as trusting with each other that we haven't really seen the need for this, and having a joint account has never really been an issue. As her job as an accountant, she is mainly in charge of managing our banking, and any large purchases have to go through both of us, just by the way the account is set up. This means it would be practically impossible to hire a private investigator without her finding out. After our last conversation, she has moved back after staying with her friend, and we are living in the same home. It is very awkward, and I have been trying to avoid her wherever possible whilst doing my best not to let on that I am trying to dig further. It was about a day after my last post that I decided to contact the police, and after a pretty long conversation explaining the situation, they told me that there was no legal grounds for them to take action without any concrete evidence or clear signs of suspicious activity. They advised me to keep an eye out and call them immediately if anything new came up. I appreciated their time, but honestly, their advice didn't give me a clear path forward. So, there has been a major development to the situation. I am feeling a load of complicated emotions right now, and writing this has been very tricky. Since the police couldn't help, I took advice from many of you and contacted our shared mobile provider. After some back and forth, they sent over out call and SMS records from the past 6 months. These records only cover standard messages and calls. I spent hours combing through these records, trying to find anything unusual, and eventually found what I was looking for, a lot of messages and calls with a specific unknown number. After digging into it, I realized that this number wasn't the kid's. It belonged to his dad. Suddenly, things clicked, and at the same time, I was thrown into a whirlwind of emotions, grief, anger, disbelief. In a weird way, I was also somewhat relieved. I don't know for sure, but what I think has been going on this entire time is my wife has been having an affair with this kid's dad, hence her recent obsession. Knowing full well that she couldn't openly talk about her relationship with his dad, it appears she has been using his son as an outlet to talk about him in our daily lives without arousing too much suspicion. In some strange way, I even feel a hint of relief. If I'm right, at least she wasn't involved with a minor. This still feels like a betrayal, but one that's more bearable than the alternative. Looking through the messages, I can now see that she is obsessed with this man, and it looks like they are in love. I am distraught that this has been going on now for so long, and that the person who I have trusted and confided in for so long has been lying to me this entire time. I cannot really put the way I'm feeling into words. I can't be certain that nothing inappropriate happened between her and the kid, but this explanation now feels more plausible to me. Still, I feel like I'm mourning the person I thought I knew and loved. The woman I've been with for 6 years, whom I trusted completely, has been hiding this from me, and it's crushing. I honestly don't see any way of working through this, so I've contacted a divorce attorney and am filing for a divorce. She isn't aware yet, as my lawyer and I are just making everything final before serving her with the papers. I am also looking for a new apartment that I can move into when this becomes more final. My father passed away 10 years ago from lung cancer, and my mom just passed away pretty recently during lockdown. I have one brother who lives on the other side of the globe and have very little contact with him nowadays. I haven't seen him since my mom's funeral, and my wife has really been the only person who has been alongside me through these tricky last few years. She has family, both her parents are still alive, and she is very close to her sister. I have no idea if any of them know anything about what's going on, but I know she tells her sister everything. Also, most of my friends are also friends of hers, or in a relationship to one of her friends, as I was new to the area when we met and didn't know many people. I don't really want to put them in the situation of having to pick sides, but also could really do with a close friend to express my feelings to. As far as the kid and his dad, I still don't actually know who they are. I don't tend to get involved with her work, like volunteering. I have never met anyone on the team she coaches or any of their parents. So, I obviously don't know anything about this guy. In none of the messages was there any mention of a wife or girlfriend, only the name of his son. At this stage, I don't think it's my responsibility to try and inform the family of the guy she's been seeing, as I literally don't even know who he is. I don't plan on confronting her about everything I have found out, but will definitely answer any questions if she asks why I'm so suddenly asking for a divorce //. I would really like to hear if anyone else has had similar experiences and what would be the best way to move forward. Update 3. I said I got records from our shared phone provider, but the truth is, I actually went through her phone. I was nervous about admitting this on here and worried about potential consequences. But in retrospect, I feel I had good enough reason to check, and the phone was purchased using our shared bank account, which could give me a valid claim for accessing it. If it counts for anything, I did try to contact our shared service provider, but they told me they don't give out any specific personal information, this includes messages, to anyone but the police, for security and confidentiality reasons. When looking through her messages with Hot Soccer Dad, the same name kept coming up and it became clear that this was the kid. The messages made it quite obvious who it was, as they were often using the kid as an excuse to stay in contact. The conversations were overly flirty, and it was quite obvious that something was going on between the two of them. On top of this, it looks like they have met up several times for coffee after practice. I don't know where the kid goes in that time, as there is still no mention of his mother, and I still don't know much about the kid's family situation. With all that said, I'm relieved to say that things are finally moving forward. I decided to meet with a divorce attorney who has been fantastic and am in the process of finalizing everything. I'm now set up in a temporary apartment with a separate bank account. It was surprisingly easy to open, and I regret not doing it earlier. The freedom it's given me has been a massive weight off my shoulders. I'm not naive anymore and I have no intention of dragging this out, but no, things may still get complicated. Though, after a lot of stress and uncertainty, I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a relief to think she'll soon be out of my life. The last real piece of bad news in this update. Her family, especially her sister, is fully aware of the situation but has chosen to side with her. I've never been the biggest fan of her sister, to be completely honest, but never to this extent. I've been receiving aggressive messages from her sister, calling me selfish and threatening to ensure my wife gets everything. They've even implied that they use their family's financial resources to back her legally, as they're well off and have offered to cover her costs. To add to this, there are some legal loopholes regarding outshared assets, including the house, which could mean I have a lot more to lose in this than I expected. This has been a humbling and, in some ways, eye-opening experience. I always assumed infidelity, or these kinds of situations, would be easy to spot. I never expected to be blindsided by my own partner, someone I loved and trusted completely. I realize now that betrayal doesn't fit into near categories or follow obvious patterns. Although this situation didn't turn out to be the predatory relationship I feared, it's shown me that anyone, male or female, can be vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. With the court date likely coming up in the next couple months and the divorce process underway, it feels like I'm nearing the end of this exhausting chapter. I'm incredibly grateful for all the support and insight I've received here. It's been a strange few weeks, but I'm determined to close this chapter and start fresh. I'll keep sharing updates as things progress, though I don't foresee too many more developments. Thank you again for being there. I know I can't respond to everyone, but your encouragement has meant a lot and given me the courage to keep on fighting. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to add. I reconnected with my brother and shared everything about what's been happening. Thankfully, he was really glad I reached out, and he's actually planning to come visit at the end of the year. Now on to second story. Mom stole my identity for a pontoon boat, suggested I declare bankruptcy over their debt, and threatened me with DCFS to keep silent. I knew my mom had her eye on a pontoon boat for the last year. She and my dad retired in 2022, and while they aren't swimming in money, they weren't hurting much for it either, or so I thought. They bought a boat in February for a little over $30,000. I didn't think a lot of it since they always rented a pontoon boat 2 to 3 times a year and didn't appear to have money issues. At the start of July, I began getting my ducks in a row to buy a house. When I applied for a pre-approval, I found out my credit score was barely over 600 and I had an extra $30K plus in debt I had no idea about. Even worse, it was 90 plus days late. I told the lender the account wasn't mine and he said my identity had probably been stolen, but it was probably someone close to me as the money would have had to go to a bank account with my name on it. I shared a bank account with my ex-fiancée and asked the bank to look into it. They said the account had been closed a couple of years ago, when we broke up, and no attempts to send money to it/take money from it have been made since. I filed a dispute with the company and the credit agencies as it was obvious to me I had been hacked or my identity had been stolen. About a week ago, I got a notice from the company to my apartment, first I had ever heard from them, saying they were going to charge off the account if payment wasn't made. I requested more information from them and they linked me to their fraud department. They were able to tell me where the money was sent. To a bank account from when I was a minor that I shared with my mom. When I called that bank, they confirmed there was activity on the account and the statements show the loan coming in and almost all of the money being transferred into what looks like my mom's account at the same bank. I haven't used that bank in more than a decade. I called my mom and asked her about it and she, after a long pause, said that's how they bought the boat. They made one payment on the account and realized they probably couldn't afford the monthly payment for the next 5 years. When I asked why they hadn't told me, she said it was because they figured I would say no, they were right, and that they had worked hard in their lives and wanted to enjoy retirement. It ended by them saying the boat couldn't be repossessed because it was a personal loan. My mom suggested declaring bankruptcy and I told them I was going to the police. My mom said not to do that because they wouldn't take it seriously. When I told her I was doing it anyway, she hinted that she might have to call DCFS on me. My 2-year-old burned themselves on a hot pan earlier this year, simple ER visit and was told accidents happen, he's fine, regarding an unsafe home. I think I'm still going to the police because declaring bankruptcy would make it impossible to buy a house. Update 1. I filed my police report the same day as my first post. The officer and I talked for probably 20 minutes and I printed out a statement from the bank. I spoke with a detective a couple days later for another 20 minutes. Fast forward about 2.5 weeks and my dad called saying my mom had been arrested. He said an officer and a detective showed up at their house asking to speak with her. When she went onto the porch, they grabbed her and arrested her. The detective, same one I talked to, explained they had a warrant. My mom has never been in trouble with the law in her life and she got arrested on a felony. They tried talking to her and she immediately requested a lawyer. They stopped asking questions but didn't let her see a lawyer right away. My dad was furious but the detective told him to have a lawyer go down to the county jail in the morning before she went to the judge. The next morning, apparently she and the lawyer talked and she was released in the afternoon with a new court date. About a week later, I get a call from DCFS requesting to meet with me about my son. I had nothing to hide so I agreed. We spoke for about half an hour at my apartment and I explained the situation. She seemed understanding and told me there are no obvious issues, she just had to follow up on a report. I will say if I'm ever in trouble, I'm hiring her lawyer. The case was dismissed at her next court date in late September. The detective called me the next day and explained the state attorney believed that they wouldn't be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt she intentionally stole my identity. He said he figured it was a BS reason because he had documents from the bank and loan company. He said the state attorney drops a lot of cases, even open and shut ones, especially when it's not violent and they have a hired attorney. She never made a statement other than her attorney telling the detective she didn't do it. He also said the loan company might go after my mom in a lawsuit. What brings me back here is that a couple weeks ago the account dropped from my credit. Even better though, I got a letter from DCFS yesterday saying the allegation against me was unfounded. I'm never talking to my piece of trash mom again.